Do you have your shot glass? We have to get into the right frame of mind for this. All right. Hey, that was fun. I've never been swooshed, I don't think, on Tequila Sunrise. Hey, Gregg White here. Welcome to Tequila Sunrise. Take your shot. I have already in with us our judges. We're going to talk about them in a little bit, but first we're going to talk about me a little bit. So, actually about this show. So first I want you to understand that what Take Your Shot is it's an opportunity for companies who are startup or early stage or growth stage supply chain techs to be able to show their wares, to pitch their story in front of these esteemed judges who really know supply chain and know technology. And they've got 3 minutes and 0 seconds to share their lifelong dreams. So this is brought to you obviously by Tequila Sunrise and Supply Chain Now and our friends at Kubera Venture Capital and all of the judges here. And in conjunction with this initiative that we're tackling called Link Labs, which is a supply chain tech incubator. So we've really gathered a bunch of people who really know supply chain technology and really care about helping these companies show their wares. So before we go into this, let me give you a little bit about the rules and the groundwork. We are going to bring in one founder at a time. They're going to pitch for their 3 minutes and 0 seconds, in case anyone forgot that. Then we're going to have a few minutes of discussion and question and answer with the judges. And then they are off to the green room and next founder comes in. So this is a whirlwind experience for all of us, including the judges and the founders. This is how it happens often in a pitch scenario. If you are at a pitch competition or something like that, you often have to pitch really, really quick. The beauty of the 3 minute pitch, so everyone knows, is it takes more effort to be able to pitch your company in 3 minutes than it does 5 or 7 minutes. You really have to distill it down to its most salient points. So we're going to get only the top level questions answered from these founders, but it's going to be really, really valuable information for you and for future founders. And we're going to learn something about these companies that are in incredible growth mode. All three of them are. They are CognitOps, a WMS, and in-warehouse fulfillment technology. Yardz, which is a construction tech and supply chain tech kind of combined, and you'll learn more about that. And then Verison, which is a indirect and direct materials technology, mostly in the manufacturing industry right now. Some of you may have heard of a few of these companies, but you're going to get to learn a whole lot more now. All right, so let's share with our judges. We are actually live and in person. You can see that we are with him. Right, we are live and in person. Balaji Gopinath from Kubera Venture Capital, our general partner at Kubera. We have Enrique. I never know which way to point on this thing. Enrique Alvarez from Vector Global Logistics, managing director. What's happening?
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me. It's going to be super exciting, and the founders that we have today are just really incredible, and they're making really good things out there. So
yeah,
happy to be here.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us. And Robin Gregg, CEO of RoadSync. Robin, how are you doing? We haven't seen you in a bit.
I know. It's great to be back, and I'm really happy that you guys are doing this again.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I don't know if everyone got to see the last show, but I think this is a great opportunity for these companies to present. I think it's a great opportunity for us to be able to exercise our reviewing and evaluation muscles and present some of these supply chain techs to the world. So thanks for joining us. Balaji, are you ready to get started?
We're ready. We are ready.
All right. So I have to get my little timer ready because I'm serious about the 3 minutes and 0 seconds. We have warned our founders.
We're caffeinated and good to go, Greg.
Are we? Okay, good. That's good. And we are go with Jason Perez, CEO of Yardz. Hey, Jason, I just want you to know, welcome, first of all.
Thank you, Gregg.
And I haven't started the timer yet. So
I was wondering, should I just
start into it?
Yeah.
Just start right into it. So so you know the game. I'm just going to give a little bit of an overview. Yardz is based in Atlanta, Georgia, or in the Atlanta, Georgia area. Construction tech, arguably. I'm going to let you redefine that as you prefer to any more specific niche. And I'm going to give you the go signal. Are you ready?
I'm always ready, Gregg.
All right.
That's my job.
Welcome and go.
So every day, thousands of construction equipment are left forgotten across the United States and abroad. They're left on the side of the road, on the back of projects, staging yards, and some of these pieces of equipment cost contractors upwards over $10,000 a month, right? The reason for this is because construction rental management has been stuck in the 80s. In a time where 3D modeling is the standard and contractors can pick up a set of VR goggles, walk an entire building before they even break ground, yet construction rental, what we found is we're battling our biggest competition, the status quo. We're battling whiteboards, sticky notes, and spreadsheets. This is all in an industry that essentially spends over $2.7 billion in construction software and $120 billion in equipment rental. Well, that's until now. Yardz is rental intelligence and asset management built for contractors. The problem we solve is that contractors rent with 3 to 5 different rental companies. They have their own yard. They're renting everything from dumpsters and porta potties to big, heavy pieces of equipment. They have projects all over the place with different project managers and stakeholders on each one. And at the end of the day, this really gets messy. What Yardz has done is provide a tool that's built on intelligence that digests data from rental companies, including the top 10 in the world, and delivers one portal to any device, allowing them to see everything on their projects, everything in one place to filter and sort from, and manage that supply chain all the way through to knowing that last day of rental and getting automated alerts. This was all birthed in a purpose of providing efficiency, matching the way contractors work, building intelligence to automate the aggregation to the largest rental companies in the industry, and providing simple reporting to make decisions easy. The result of all this for contractors is a savings of 10 to 30% in overall rental costs and 89% in time. On our first quarter of executing a go-to-market, what we saw was for every 50 customers we touched, we had 5 demos, and every 5 demos, 1 customer. That's a 20% conversion on demos. If we continue with that model, we find very sound growth in this industry and a place where there's a vacuum for all rental tech. I'm Jason Perez, CEO of Yardz. We're made of a team of technology powerhouse and industry experts. One being a CEO of a rental company that actually was acquired by United Rental for $1.3 billion. This is Yardz. We saw the problem. We built the solution. We're the future of equipment rental.
Thanks, Jason. I'll let you have a few extra seconds there, but I feel like it was worth it.
Good.
All right. So real quick, let's go through and first impressions. Balaji, let's start with you because you're closest.
Sure. Jason, great presentation. Appreciate the insight.
Thank you.
Question on the data gathering. What data are you actually gathering, and how does it get to you? Are these coming out of systems? Are there sensors on the equipment itself? How do you actually collect the data? Yeah,
so we have different ways that we actually collect the data. largest barrier to entry is building these relationships with these rental companies, right? Because at the end of the day, it's their data, they don't want to share it, and it's their customers in their opinion. So we've built either APIs or bridged other ways of collecting that data with each one of these rental companies, and we digest it on our side through our server, right? And so it could be everything from the actual transactional cost, right? The rates, the taxes, the fees for pickup, delivery, all those components. And in some cases, for some of our companies, we are digesting some of the telematics, right? So hours on equipment, utilization on equipment. So we're consuming a tremendous amount of data daily, both on the transactional side and then on the actual physical asset.
Yeah, no, but the data on the physical asset, is that something that all the rental companies have today? Do they know exactly where things are, or is that the challenge?
Well, so the data that we don't take any of the physical asset data from the rental companies. They keep that close to their chest, and so they don't share that data with us. We do have owned asset components where a customer that, say they rent 50% of their equipment, but they also own 50% of their equipment that they deploy. So they manage both assets, and they're able to control that, understanding of need within the supply chain, right? How many pieces of equipment do I need, and how many do I have in my yard? And so by them bringing both onto the single platform, we can start to define that, and they can see, again, what's everything rented, what's everything owned, and what project it is it on, and how many do I have available to deploy.
Got it. Okay.
Robin, you want to go next?
Yeah. First of all, great presentation. I really enjoyed it. And I honestly had not thought a lot about the equipment rental market. I had no idea it was that huge. So super interesting area. I would love to hear a little bit more about what are the consequences of the disconnected systems, like more tangibly, like what is are people just keeping their rentals too long? Are they losing them? Like what describe the pain for me in a little bit more detail of what's actually happening that makes it, that's sort of, a pain point here.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's visibility and transparency to the assets that they rent, and the consequence of that, or maybe I should say the benefit once you start using Yardz is, our customers, when we surveyed them, we're talking 10 to 30% savings in overall rental costs. And that's because if you rent something for 9 months and then you forget about it and it even goes over 1 month, well, that's a 10% savings right there, right? Because you're reducing 1 month off of that rental. And so through these alerts and automation and some of the summaries that we provide out to the teams, they're actually reducing the amount of equipment that they're renting overall, but they're also reducing the time that they're renting that equipment, right? Because that visibility causes prompts, and what we've done is condition the users in these behaviors. And we tell people, you buy a stick of gum on impulse because you see it, right? As you go through the register. Well, you call off a piece of equipment, or you decide to send it back because you're prompted with that visibility to it. And so we really provide that transparency. And again, the cost is a tremendous component of it. Although I visited a customer this morning, he said he left a rental on a job site so long that when they went back, a tree was growing in the back of it. So that gives you an idea of how long you can forget a piece of equipment.
Wow.
And are you kind of developing your own AI on that? Like, hey, on average, you should have this type of piece of equipment this long, or this has been sitting here for a while, or how are you kind of getting to those prompts?
Yeah, so we are, as you get data, you start to kind of build those mechanisms in. So there's a couple components that we're building into our system, and intelligence will start to not only determine, what type of rentals based on, certain seasons and things of that nature. But, as you said, there's demand component. There's also purchasing time components, right? Or should I rent or should I purchase based on the longevity of that rental? So we can start to provide more value add as, time goes on and we get more data, right?
Cool, thanks.
Enrique?
Yeah, so Jason, once again, thank you very much for presenting. Really interesting presentation. Well done. I had a couple of questions, and I know you kind of rushed through that. Like, at what stage of the company are you in right now? Like, how many? I know that data is important. How many customers do you have? How much revenues do you have? And then a follow-up question to that is, how would you measure success for Yardz? I mean, why are you doing all this? What's your end goal here?
Yeah, so I think the end goal only gets achieved if at the end of the day you're focused on the customer, you're focused on the problem all the time, right? And so we're very early stage. We went through our first, what I guess you would call an angel round, and completed that in January. And so our go-to market really started end of February, beginning of March. That's when we hired our first salespeople. And so, we've really executed our plan as I mentioned. We've kind of built this matrix of what we believe, how many phone calls, how many demos, and how many closes. And sure enough, we've actually hit those numbers, week over week and month over month. So right now we're post, revenue. We have, we're, I would say for a VC, we're pre-revenue, because nothing significant enough. But we're at a great stage right now with, adding on every month 4 to 5 customers. Actually, we just hired another salesperson, so that would, start to increase to 8 to 10 customers a month as that salesperson ramps up. So, we have a very aggressive plan of, every 1 to 2 months, depending on what it looks like, adding a new salesperson and ramping up that sales. And we're a SaaS-based product, right? So, so it's just adding subscriptions every month.
Are you focusing on a particular market here in Atlanta or somewhere else? As Gregg mentioned this before.
That's right. Yeah, we focused here in Atlanta first. Our flagship customer is Brasfield and Gorey. They're the largest, contractor here in the Southeast by volume. And so, overall rentals that we're managing through our system right now is over $100 million in rentals that are going through, or I should say that our customers are managing through our system, right?
Thank you.
Yes.
Jason, a couple questions. How, and I may be tagging on to what Robin was asking here, and that is, how big is the problem for contractors? And second half of the question, what is your status in terms of raising, or do you have another ask of the marketplace?
Yeah. Well, whenever you're developing a new product, you really got to go out and you have to do a tremendous amount of customer discovery. And when you look and you go, how big is the problem? What we found is the problem is massive. Now, how big is the problem perceived might be a little bit different. And when I say massive and vast, every single project that you see out there has rental equipment on it, right? And every single person that you talk to will admit that they've forgotten a piece of equipment. And when I say every person, I know it sounds, like this grandiose, all-inclusive kind of statement, which I hate when people make, but I seriously have never met with someone that said, I've never forgotten a piece of equipment, because it's part of the nature of being a contractor. Contractors, if you learn something about them, AGC, which is an organization, they'll tell you that they're 40% efficient. So they're only productive 40% of their day. And that's kind of a crazy statistic. In regards to raise, we just finished, that first raise in January, but our plan is to raise again and close another round in December. So we feel with the traction that we have and some of the major customers that we're, bringing on in the next couple months, because, along with these singles, we have a couple home runs that we've, really put on the table that are even larger than Brasfield and Gorey. So, we should be closing hopefully another round in December. That's our goal.
Okay. Where do you think you'll be revenue-wise then?
All right. I'm going to give you the CEO answer. I think we need to be at 80,000 MRR. Right now we're projected at around 50,000 MRR in December.
But you're ramping sales pretty quick. So
yes, we are.
How fast do they come up to speed?
So far, our salespeople have been able to. Originally, we had them kind of scaled at 0 closes the first month, and then 2 kind of thing. And what we found was actually they closed 3. Our first salesperson closed 3 the first month, 2 the second month, 6 the third month. So they're ramping up fairly quickly. And so, we have people focused on enterprise sales, and we have people focused on the singles again. So as we continue to ramp up and we scale this model, we believe it's a completely achievable goal to get there at 55. I want to be at 80,000.
Okay, good.
But,
Yeah.
our model right now is at 55.
Okay.
So Jason, a question on the seasonality of the business. I mean, I would expect some seasonality with the rental, and that maybe contribute to non-usage or people leaving things on a site. I don't know how that's buffered in to the business. I'd love to understand how long the sales cycle really is for an enterprise versus the one-off, and if is this a direct sales model, and are you hiring direct sales people that have to go do this? Because that's an expensive ARR and ACV value if you're doing that. And if it's indirect, I can understand how you might get there.
Yeah, so we're doing outbound calling, right? So, essentially telemarketing at a grassroots basis. Again, but we're converting those calls, for every 50 calls or every 10 calls, we're getting one demo, right? And so if we're getting that 5 demos, then we're converting one of those into a customer. And so, for some people, again, at our stage of the game, it's kind of hard to do this inbound, marketing type scenario. And it's also, ensuring that we really refine our sales process, right? Because that's the goal. You get that first tranche of money. And my job is to ensure that we build a repeatable process and we refine that sales process so that, we don't go 50 to 5 demos, we go 50 to 10 demos, right? I've got to continue to increase that efficiency of the sales process. So, we do see us getting towards, the end of this year and the beginning of next year, doing a lot more involvement in the marketing and associations and all that type of stuff. But, again, where we're at as a phase and as a company in the go-to market, this is our, current strategy.
Hey, so I think I'd like to have the judges share a little bit of their point of view and maybe any insights that you have for Jason. So Enrique, would you like to start?
Yes, well, Jason, one of the things that kind of immediately came to my mind was just the pricing model. I know you didn't speak much about the pricing model, but I think that's definitely going to be something interesting to look at and see what kind of models you're proposing to go from the 50,000 that you have per month to the 80 or even more before the end of the year. And then, of course, the other thing is something that Balaji mentioned, which is just seasonality and how the whole kind of market is going to influence the model and your pitch.
Yeah. So seasonality, there's obviously some seasonality as either, winter comes in the Midwest and Northeast, things might slow down a little bit, but we're still talking, a fairly large market that, again, is somewhat of a vacuum when it comes to, rental technology for contractors, right? There's a lot of software out there for rental companies, but when you start talking about, how do contractors manage it? How do they aggregate it? There's just a vacuum there. In regards to the pricing model, we've actually exercised a couple ways of looking at the pricing model because we prototyped this quite a bit, and we went through our MVP and we provided some optionality to our customers and said, hey, here's some options on how we can essentially charge you. And what we found over and over again is, where demand pricing really works in a lot of different industries, we're still seeing this per seat type pricing because licenses and seats is the way that construction is always operated. It sounds crazy, but it's still the majority of the way that people operate within construction.
Thanks, Jason. Robin, any insights or?
Yeah, no, I think, thank you for sharing the business. I think it's a great business. Certainly kind of understand the value prop and the need. And it does seem like you have the opportunity. I mean, all of us probably have personally forgotten about things that they had borrowed or rented. And so thinking about it in, the light of the contract world and all the equipment they must be managing, I could see where this could be material. I've had a lot of experience selling into sort of these blue collar verticals, construction, transportation, things like that. And I guess I'd just encourage you to really leverage your sales data as much as possible, really understand your win losses and why the 80% that are not converting after a demo. Why is it? What feedback are you getting? Make sure that you're really learning from that. And also would sort of encourage you to think about how you're reaching your customers. This may not be a digital play. I mean, as you mentioned, this is a market that people aren't aware of quite yet. But I would love your thoughts on how are you thinking about getting the word out and educating the market, and what are the tactics that you think are going to work?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you, because we try to stay focused on the problem, but sometimes we also forget to focus on the losses. And I think people like Gregg has pounded that into us multiple times too. Like you got to focus on these losses. You got to find out why, right? Because it only refines your sales process, your pitch, and inevitably your product. If you hear it enough, then you got to address it. And so we've been doing some of that in the last 2 months, actually, building some very small, very cost-effective feature sets that would address some of the things that we keep on hearing about. In regards to how do we get the word out, we're getting more and more involved with some of these associations, right? We actually just hired a PR firm last month, and so this month they're getting us into publications and doing all that. So we should start to actually get a lot of that education into some of these construction magazines and some of these online forums and things of that nature. So we do have a PR, an outside firm that's going to be doing a lot of PR for us in the next 3 to 6 months, really saturating the market with our name.
So I would add, Jason, one of the things that could help in clarifying is what are you replacing or enhancing? If it's spreadsheets, understanding the current process, what's not working today, and how big a problem that really is, I think would be key to understand and why your solution fills that gap.
Yeah.
And in relation to that also, what is the adoption gap? Many times in this market, where you're replacing Excel spreadsheets, there's an adoption gap to new technology that may take some time in terms of onboarding. And I think you have a more complex problem if you're sucking in data. Is the data good and clean that you have? And I don't know if it is or not, and how you're making sure that it is. But if you, as a new company moving into something where you're trying to automate, if all that stuff is not in play, the churn could also start to develop as well, because they're not seeing as much benefit as you sold them on.
Absolutely. So we've built, once we started digesting the data, cleansing the data was, something that we had to learn how to do, right? And not only us cleansing the data, but inevitably you want everything self-serve. So we've built systems around how to cleanse that data for the customer, where they can go and they can look at data that's inconsistent, so that when they change certain components within that data, it automatically maps correctly. And so it doesn't take a tremendous amount of training to do that within the system. For me, when you talk about enhancements and things of that nature, I always tell everybody, including our customers, the job of technology first, before anything else, is to simplify, right? Like, I just want to push a button when I've had too many drinks and have somebody pick me up and take me home. That's as simple as, as what Uber is, right? I just want a button to push so that I can get home. And same with us. We want, again, it's forgetting the assets first and foremost. I don't know where they're at, so I need visibility. I need one list. I normally log into 5 different places and I cut and paste to make a spreadsheet, right? Or I'm managing, rates, or I'm, however it is, sticky notes. At the end of the day, they're trying to get all this data in one place, but they don't want it to where, I have to click in 5 different places even to see it. And so, our motto here is one click, one page, right? It has to simplify the process. You've got to match behavior. You've got to match psychology. You've got to understand how your customer makes decisions and how they work, right? What does that process look like?
So, given the cost of some of this equipment, why wouldn't there just be a location sensor that goes to a map, and then I have a pin exactly where all my pieces of equipment are, and that's annotated?
because that's very sophisticated, believe it or not. And our customers are using whiteboards, sticky notes, and spreadsheets. So the idea of deploying technology at that level is great for enterprise customers, but even customers that rent $5 million a year, they don't really care about that. They're still using spreadsheets, right? So if you start talking about sensors and everything like that, they literally get like, wait a second, yeah, it's way too advanced, right?
So you think that's a hindrance to the market right now? That you think the contractors would object to that? The contractors or the rental companies?
Not the rental companies. I think the rental companies have telematics and GPS on their equipment now. And if you rent with one rental company and strictly one rental company, you can get that utilization and telematics and data off of it. You can do that
from their app,
from their portal.
Okay.
But if you rent with more than one, now you've got 4 or 5 screens. And think of what companies like Mint and these other budgeting software do. They don't, it's not that they invented something crazy advanced, right, in regards to how the user uses it. Maybe the technology that fuels it is advanced, but the reality is I just want to sign on and see all my bank accounts in one place, or personal capital, right? I want to get my net worth, no matter what time, of the day or night or what month it is or whatever. I want to be able to get that and have all my accounts feeding in one place. And so, it's a convenience, right? It's a simplicity of technology that has to be addressed first before the enhancements to a technology get adopted. And so I think, what we do is we provide simplicity. We provide ease. We provide, peace of mind for contractors to be able to just sign in and know it's taken care of.
So thank you. I have just a couple comments for you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I think you did a great job. I think you've got, you're onto something here. One of the things I think you have to do, I have to reiterate this because we've kind of come back around to this. You have to enunciate how big the problem is in numbers, millions or billions or trillions or whatever it is. So if it's hard to get to, it's probably worth the research. I think if you are going to raise later this year, and this won't be news to you, you need to be approaching that million MRR. And just for our audience, that's monthly recurring revenue. ARR, which we've used also, annually recurring revenue. And then of course, I think you said ACV, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But those are the couple things that I think you need to focus on in addition to some of these things. And just my opinion, you need to have an eye towards the future of consolidating those telematics into your application, because essentially what you are doing, as I see it, is you are freeing them from having to go to only United Rentals or whomever else. And if you're going to give them that freedom, they're going to have the same capability. At least the enterprise customers are. They're going to have that same capability to know where that product is. I don't know that physically knowing where it is, I can't say for certain. It feels like it should be. I think you would say that it does. Physically knowing where the product is important. But again, just investigate that and make sure that you're ahead of that, because outside of a really powerful advanced technology, like you said, this is just like Mint or Personal Capital or name a dozen other companies that is really easy to knock off. And this isn't the kind of industry of that size that gives you millions of dollars or possibly billions of dollars in revenue before the competition gets to the marketplace.
Yeah, I would just end with the defensibility of automating spreadsheets is fairly small in terms of building your moat. So sometimes the advanced features are where you're going to find your moat that's the strongest barrier to entry and gives you an advantage in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not that we're ignoring it. Just to provide clarification, again, we consume telematics data for our customers' machines now. We can connect to every OEM that's out there, Caterpillar, Komatsu, Deere, all those places. We're consuming that data, and it's not that we haven't attempted to consume the data of telematics from rental companies. It's the willingness to provide that data. And so we've continued to bridge that gap in relationship building. And, the hope is to get there one day, right?
Plan is. So
The plan is. You're right. It's not a hope.
So, Jason, thank you for spending some time with us. I appreciate it. We've got a lot of comments in the stream, so if you want to go in there and you may need to answer some of those questions directly. Yeah. We just don't have time to get to all of them.
Absolutely.
But I sure appreciate your time. Thank you very much. We're gonna talk to the folks in the stream a little bit, and then we'll bring in the next founder. So take care. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Wow. Okay. So we talked about this a little bit off camera. I'd like, hopefully you all are taking some notes or memorizing this, because I'd love to kind of come back around to each one of these founders as we do that, and give us your greatest top 2 or 3 takeaways, right, from each of these things. So we can get that, obviously, that knowledge to the audience, but also back to the founders so that they can tackle that. All right, so let's share a couple of points. So Kelly Barner, thank you, Kelly. Look, and then, oh my gosh, Scott is love take your shot and these incredible esteemed judges and founders, home run stuff. Well, Scott, thank you, and thanks for the training to help us at least be able to figure out how to work this thing. And then I'm not sure who this person is. It seems like I may have seen that somewhere else, but LinkedIn has blocked us a little bit. So love pitch competitions. Looking forward to learning about these technologies. So are we. And then, of course, excited to see how one distills their value proposition into 3 minutes. Well, you saw it. And also you saw that 3 minutes of pitching created about 30 minutes of discussion. By the way, we probably need to cut that down slightly. But it's incredibly difficult to do that, and I appreciate these founders for doing that. Mervin, good to see you. Peter Bollet, as Scott says, all night and all day, learning from the feedback is critical to shifting the message to potential customers. Absolutely. And I think that's, this is kind of the making of the sausage that folks are getting to see, of how you have those discussions with founders, and the spirit, obviously, in which those discussions are offered, right? As helpful suggestions, as insights that sometimes are hard to get for yourself because you're inside the 4 walls each day. And really pitching and discussing your company allows you to get insights. Key is taking those insights in, of course, and then applying them and validating them periodically. Hey, I don't know if anybody follows Mohib on LinkedIn, but he took a few pictures at our event yesterday. So we are in Wichita, for anyone who doesn't know, and we're at Groover Labs here. So a tech incubator that we're working with here, and co-working space and makerspace, a really rare combination that we're working with here in Wichita. And we had a visit with some of the founders here. So, all right. This is a good point, Jerry Levy. Know why you lose, but also why you win. So many people don't analyze why they won or why things went well, and then it's really difficult for them to replicate it. So, all right, let's get ready and bring in our next founder, who is Alex Ramirez, CEO and co-founder at CognitOps. Welcome, Alex.
Thanks for having me, Gregg.
Certainly. It's great to have you here. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay.
Wear their seatbelt.
Yeah, that's all right. Everybody buckle up. Alex believes he can do this in well under 3 minutes, so I can't wait to see this. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Speak up.
Right on. Name is Alex Ramirez, co-founder and CEO of CognitOps. Looking forward to getting after it. Next slide, please. So we believe the warehouse tech market is absolutely broken. Over the past 5 years, there's been a global investment of about $10 billion in warehouse management software and its derivative forms, the many acronyms that exist in the acronym soup. Yet we continue to see some really bad metrics coming from warehouses, whether it's idle time, missed revenue with SLA breaches, poor equipment utilization, or even really low worker engagement. Next slide, please. And when you add to this fact that not only are the solutions not being part of the solution, but that the human being is going extinct. In fact, there was a survey a couple of years ago about the number one issue that supply chain leaders were facing. And 68% of the respondents said, I can't find that qualified worker, the critical thinker. Well, now if my human being is going extinct and my solutions aren't giving me the value, what do you do about it? Next slide. And then to further compound it, because I love to exaggerate for effect, look at these macros that are invading the warehouse floor. You've got these solution providers competing with different acronyms, different solutions. Of course, thank you to the pandemic for accelerating the velocity of fulfillment. And of course, the robots invading. It presents for a convergence of really bad forces that are forcing warehouses to really adapt. And that's where CognitOps comes in. Next slide, please. And so why is there still pain besides, these solutions? It's ultimately about the decision maker. This operations manager is responsible for aligning balance and flow across their buildings, but they're using tools like Excel, Post-it notes, or worse, tribal knowledge. And at the rate of attrition, the rate of extinction in these people, this tribal knowledge is being lost at a steady pace. Next slide, please. And so CognitOps is the solution. We believe there's a tremendous blue ocean of opportunity here to create a vertical SaaS engine that basically serves as a brain for the warehouse, aligning the 4 universal truths of any warehouse: my people, my inventory, my demand, and my equipment, without replacing a single thing. We're here, like the government, to help and to augment your existing solutions. Next slide, please. But our vision is much more ambitious and hairy and audacious in that by allowing us to plug into each one of these buildings and to create a data asset that no one has ever created before in terms of true warehouse performance data, not only can we build a brain for an individual building, but we can build brains for many buildings and connect enterprises together to share practices and be rising tides that raise all boats. Next slide, please. And so I feel incredibly blessed with having the right team, the right customers, investors, and partners. We've built a skunkworks of an organization with awesome backing, great customers, foundational customers with Sephora and Medline. Last slide. Thank you very much.
Dead on. That's perfect. So timing is your specialty, and in this industry, that's really, really
indeed.
So indeed. Thank you for that.
You got it.
Enrique, you okay if we start with you?
Yes, of course. And Alex, thank you very much. That was very impressive. You delivered as promised.
Thank you, Enrique.
3 minutes or less, without using your hands as much as you usually probably do.
Yeah. Yes.
No, that was good. I can totally understand the problem, and I can understand what you're trying to solve. The one very general question I had for you is: there's many competitors. I've seen tons of companies that are actually claiming similar things that you're claiming. What makes you guys different? I mean, and again, this is probably a very standard question that you get asked, but I feel like a lot of people have seen this opportunity. There's a lot of people jumping in. There's a lot of people with deep pockets jumping in. Why you guys?
I think the first question, or the first answer to that, and it's not to be overlooked, is really the subject matter expertise through the deep empathy of being in the warehouse, Enrique. So callousing our hands of understanding the problem very deeply, and almost being an arsonist that put out his own fire, right? In that we have deployed many of those systems. We know where the dead bodies are. I think that gives us a leg up in that we're not trying to be an engineering group that builds a solution in search of a problem. Like, we've precipitated and exacerbated this problem, and so we know how to attack it with focus and deep empathy. The second, I think, moat that we have is from day one, we built a modern stack that was for data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence. We're not there yet. Anybody that claims to be able to plug into a data set and do magic AI should, go sell a bridge. Right. But being able to architect the solution, knowing that the warehouse and everything inside of it is really rich and structured and semi-structured and can be leveraged for machine learning purposes. And starting with that MO has been a big win for us, in that we can go from the first data to a prediction, I think, faster than many vendors. And it's not just a prediction, kind of like blanket prediction. It's one that's focused on that pain that we felt intimately ourselves being in the warehouse. And then lastly, I've got a spectacular team. I mean, if there was a bake-off right now, I'm going to bet the farm. I've already bet the farm, being a founder. And I think our team is deeply special in their laser focus, loving and cherishing the space that we're in.
Thank you. One thing that I really got my attention was when you mentioned that it was you made the comparison to a brain, right? Because it's one thing to actually sell this technology to a warehouse or a couple of warehouses, but when you're actually starting to connect all this information and data and technology across multiple warehouses and across the supply chain, that's when it becomes really powerful, I think. And you're right on that. How much of your business right now comes from this kind of idea of interconnecting multiple warehouses as opposed to just the individual warehouses? What's the breakdown right now in terms of the revenues?
Yeah, I'm going to say 100% of our revenue is focused solely on the brain for the individual warehouse, Enrique.
Right.
We're still prototyping, MVPing, road mapping, whiteboarding what that solution should be to create this kind of new form of supply chain visibility that's actually getting down into the warehouse, right? You look at the supply chain visibility market and they treat the warehouse kind of like a black box, this closet, right, in the corner that I just worry about input, output. We're creating this new data asset. And so we, like my previous comment where we build for data science, now that we've got this massive data set, what do we do with it? And what should we be promoting to the network, if you will, on recommendations and visibility, right, et cetera. So 100% of my revenue traction to date has been, let's plug in, let's optimize, let's win today within the building. And then for tomorrow, let's look at how we best plan across the buildings. I
was very excited about that part. And I think that could be a really interesting area for you and your company. And thanks again for the presentation. Very well done.
Thank you, Enrique. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Enrique. Robin?
Yeah, great presentation. I definitely enjoyed it, and a very crisp and tight presentation overall. My question was, a little bit of familiarity. We work with a lot of warehouses, and I too have been shocked with how disconnected the systems are that they use to manage their day-to-day operations. But you could do a lot. You talked about a lot of different things that you did. What do you feel like is sort of is there a wedge or a specific item that really is an acute pain point? Is it labor management? Is it something else? Like, what do you feel like is the thing that really gets people's attention?
Yeah, I think when we look at our value proposition and quick vectors to win and to show some momentum to continue to gain that traction within our client base, it's really about labor. It's, for example, Sephora, who's one of our two foundational partners, with Medline being the other. Sephora, during the 2020 pandemic, right, like many other retailers and businesses, couldn't find people to save the operation, right? Yet all of their volumes had shifted over to e-com. And what do you do when you've got less people but more volume? What CognitOps was able to do is to say, look, based on all the many silos that you have, and they have many, where should you position these team members and when, in order to create that balance and flow? And so often we get compared to labor management systems that are more about the motions, the arithmetic, right, calculations to go from point A to point B. Those are fantastic systems if you want, a scoreboard to say, I'm ranking Robin better than Enrique, better than Gregg, better than Alex. What do you do if it's the Tuesday after the Super Bowl and everybody's a little hungover and operating at 80% capacity? That's where they're having to kind of play whack-a-mole and push and pull levers. CognitOps can come in and say, look, you have a reality right now, which if you just continue with the status quo, you're going to be offside, whether it's on a cost per unit basis or order fulfillment basis. Let's deal with the reality and get the right people in the right place at the right time across the many systems. The second easy win for us is to really understand bottlenecks. So we've got the ability to predict when certain assignments, orders are stuck in certain parts of the building. And that's a heavy use of machine learning to say, I know historically that your picking process for this type of order on this day should take 30 minutes, but it's 27 minutes and you still have a ton of lines to pick. I'm predicting that you're offside here. Let's get in front of it before it turns into DEFCON 1, right?
Very cool. Thanks.
Yep.
Balaji?
Alex, thanks for the presentation. Curious about a couple of things. I mean, we love data. We invest a lot in data. The systems you're trying to access to get this stuff from, to create this the brain, as you call it, very disparate. Some are very antiquated.
Indeed.
Some don't even have APIs. So at some level, it seems a lot more like a consultative organization with a toolkit
Sure.
than it does a product or a platform, particularly if you're focused on specific problems like labor management, which there's scarcity in any way. So regardless of what you figure out from an optimization level, if there aren't enough people, there aren't enough people, right? And then that's a reality you can't necessarily affect. So what can you truly affect with the software and what you're learning from the data science?
Yes.
And then what is truly outside of your scope and just an alert or visibility kind of tech?
Yeah. So the first point about the data and being a consulting business, certainly CAC and the implementation cost of that first building, Balaji, is offside, right? I'm not a VC-backed company. If all I did was to go to the SMB market or operators that have 1 or 2 buildings and spend, anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks in just data ingest, right? Our customers are multi-site customers that have data stores and infrastructure that when I tap in once, I quickly amplify the subscriptions right across the network. And the way that we collect data, these warehouse management systems, however disparate they are very relational in nature. The data quality has to be sound. They were built predicated on the model that if any data coming in, say from an ERP, is malformed, it's going to get ejected, right? The WMS has to have clean data. And so we're leaning on that, say, advantage to be able to go find the data quickly. And remember, being that arsonist, knowing how these systems are structured and having a data collection capability behind us, we can get into facilities with brand new WMSs or legacy 30-year-old WMSs, which we have clients with that model, and plug in very, very quickly. Now, going to the point about, what can we affect as soon as possible? My point around being able to predict orders, their cycle times, and where they're stuck to accelerate your ability to drive more fulfillment in your building is an easy win, because it requires a couple things. One, it requires an understanding of the building through a digital twin capability that we have in our technology. Secondly, it has to have some sort of machine learning model in the background to say, based on everything that's happening, the flow paths of this order, right? Is it offside or is it not, right? And then it has to have a rich analytic, right? A front end that's empathetic to the persona we're trying to serve, which is the ops manager. If all I did was spam him or her with a bunch of pretty charts and graphs, it's going to look like Tableau. And so what we do is we convert all those analytics into plain text recommendations to say, hey, Balaji, based on the order data that we have currently, historical, and our forecast, I need you to get on top of these orders that are going to miss SLA. And that's a pretty standard data set, irrespective of whether you're on an AS400 or a brand new cloud-based.
Alex, so just flipping to just revenue and who your clients are today. I mean, who are you serving? What's your sweet spot? How many warehouses do I need, right,
Yep.
in order for me to activate and get that leverage model working and that network effect?
Yeah.
Right. And what's the throughput in e-commerce? Let's focus there, because that's the growing segment. And that's where probably a lot of the problems are coming into play.
Yeah. So first, on the revenue side, by the end of the year, we're going to be north of 2 million in ARR. The types of clients that we go after are retailers, distributors, 3PLs, B2B, CPG-like companies that have the universal pain of a warehouse poorly run because people are using Excel. And so I hate to be the sleazy lawyer and say it depends, and I apologize for any lawyers watching, say it does depend, but our preference in go-to-market is to find clients that have multiple warehouses where we can then be on sites 2 through 10, let's say, on the mix between subscription and those one-time services, right? And so we do not discriminate in terms of whether you are a 1-site customer or a 300-site customer, like one that we have. But certainly we do weigh the pro and con of, if I dedicate resources to this one customer that has one building, and in my pipeline I have a Fortune 1, well, then that's a strategic decision that I need to make, right? And so I think we've been diligent in qualifying and filtering our top of funnel and getting clients that allow us to land, expand, and continue to push us from a roadmap perspective.
And what's the sales cycle look like, Alex?
Anywhere from, we've had deals close in 4 weeks to 18 months. The old enterprise like models, I'd say on average, we're looking at 4 to 5 months.
Okay, thank you.
You got it.
So a couple things from my perspective real quick, and then we'll wrap up, because it turns out I may have planned this a little bit poorly and we ran over a little bit, and Robin is running a business where she's just taken a bunch of funding, so she has to be diligent for the board. So she is earning her ducats. So we're going to let her go at 1 or any time between now and 1. But Robin, before you jump, do you want to add anything else?
No, I think this is a great business. I'm impressed by your traction. This is a hard market to sell into. We sell into warehouses as well, and so I think you've done a really nice job. I mean, it's probably not an easy thing to pitch, and so I think focusing on the killer features is really the way to go. And they're feeling the pain acutely on the labor side, and so I think, to the extent that you're offering magic there, I think that can really be helpful. But really impressive business, and enjoyed your presentation immensely.
Appreciate the
and
feedback.
enjoyed being here overall, guys. I'm sorry I have to jump off. I have something I couldn't. But also it's good because Paul Noble and I shared an office wall for a long time, so he probably is sick of my feedback anyway.
You want to leave notes for?
I will. I'll leave notes for him.
All right. Thanks
for having me. All right. Bye.
Thank you. So Alex, just a couple quick observations. This is a very crowded space, and if you're going to differentiate in any way, you need to enunciate it very clearly. It was interesting. I didn't pick up on the digital twin or the strength of the ML and AI tools that you have. I would not necessarily go to those you don't need to use the keywords in the presentation, but the so what of those need to have more impact in the presentation. I have one question for you, and it's this is from the heart, because as you and as Robin have done, I have worked with the warehouse management for my entire supply chain career. I was the original implementer of Manhattan's PKMS. So my question is, why hasn't Blue Yonder or Manhattan or High Jump or somebody who's been well established in the marketplace, why haven't they done what you've done if there's so much hue and cry in the marketplace, and why couldn't they?
So is there a way for me to show you a shrug emoji? Because I frankly don't know, Greg. Like we have been surprised, dumbfounded to date that this persona, the ops manager, has been left in the dust. I think the WMS companies are too busy building warehouse execution, warehouse controls. The OEMs are fighting upstream to be warehouse management companies. Everybody's fighting for the eyeballs, the hands, the feet of the worker bee. And no one's really focusing on how should I best manage these individuals, these team members. And so we feel fortunate that I don't consider myself very smart, but certainly very lucky to be tapping into an unmet need and doing so with, maniacal purpose and focus. And so you got to ask them, because
I would figure that out if I were in your shoes. And especially the answer to the question, why couldn't they? Because
I like my lead though, Greg.
You need to have your eye on your flank with companies with that kind of capital.
But to Greg's point, Alex, I think some of the things you kind of bury the lead a bit in the presentation. Digital twin, AI, machine learning are aspirational to many. If you have that, if the butcher has pork chops, put them in the window, right?
No, I like that. Did you write that down, Alex?
That's a good one. I will steal that with zero attribution, Balaji.
Yeah.
So, you know.
And so again, those are difficult things to get to, and particularly when you're talking to investors, if they don't understand that differentiation through technology specifically and software, it's you may be solving some great problems, but they don't look as defensible as they probably are.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. It's a challenge to do this in 3 minutes, but I know our investors, customers, and team members believe in it, and so it's a rite of passage and birthright for us. So we're going to continue to crush it. But I certainly appreciate and note the feedback.
Thank you very much, Alex. Alex Ramirez, CEO and founder, CognitOps. Talk to you soon.
Be good.
All right, gang, we are right at the top of the hour. I bet some of you are using your lunch hour for this, or you're near bedtime. So if you got to jump, appreciate it. But we have one more coming. Really interesting company, Verison. All of us here, including Robin, who was here, all of us personally know Paul Noble, and
for good or bad,
and have worked with him. The marketplace is excited about what he's doing. So hopefully, if you can stick around, because you're gonna get to see another special presentation. So there are a lot of questions in the stream. I'm sorry, I'd love to get to those. We're gonna get through Paul and let everyone get as much of this presentation and interaction together, and then we'll probably do a quick wrap up after we've gotten through Paul's presentation, and we'll try to take some questions there. So, Paul Noble, CEO and co-founder at Verison. Hey, Paul.
Gentlemen, how are you? Good afternoon.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, we're going to try and get you out of here before it's time to go home. So,
and I know I'll have to catch up with Robin another time.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. She left us a list of questions, very, very complex and difficult questions. So I'll take those on her behalf.
All good.
All right. Okay. She wanted me to try to trip you up. All right. Are you ready?
Sure. Yeah. We'll let's give it a whirl.
You're doing this without a net, so no slides, right?
No slides. We're just gonna wrap here, tee it up, and then go into an informative Q&A, which I know this group is. I'm going to be swimming with the sharks here.
All right. Speak up.
All right. Hi, I'm Paul Noble, founder and CEO of Verison. We are a supply chain intelligence company focused on transforming materials management to build more resilient supply networks. So our software platform does this by infusing the transformative power of AI into a space that desperately needs it. So as we talk about materials management, global supply chains want to know what they need, where they need it, when they need it, to run their operations and build their products. And operations and procurement and finance are all working on supply chain digital transformations and doing things in their own little silo. And there's this large gap around materials management, specifically data that lives across legacy systems and processes that don't support where the businesses need to go. And this creates a ton of fear, pain, and uncertainty across these organizations, and often misalignment. So think of Verison as an intelligence layer which combines multiple purpose built AI models that plugs in, understands data out of legacy systems, and then makes our own recommendations within our platform, and can also send that data to other adjacent systems that have workflows but have that data gap, which is significant across the Frankenstein of legacy ERP and EAM systems, and only getting worse by the day. So we are creating one sustainable, self-cleansing, self-learning platform that can plug in and enhance versus rip out and replace. And we have this concept of delivering material truth for organizations. So there is a ton of incomplete and dirty data that lives across these Frankensteins. But then there's also a ton of knowledge in the experts that work across these global supply chains in different capacities, ops, procurement, a lot of human knowledge that, because it's so painful to get in the system, never really gets there. So, and then lastly, you look at all of the additional data and signals that work into from IoT and everything that create this full view of trust. We combine all those and make it very simple, very fast, and very scalable. And we do this and show a significant value of an average of $20 million to our customers in the first 90 days. So we are vertical agnostic, system agnostic, and our customers include Georgia Pacific, Southern Company, AB InBev, and a multitude of different organizations across those industries. And so we take these traditional cycles, go from two to 3 years of data cleansing in this system and that system, drive it down to 2 to 3 months, and lay a foundation that can really help deliver this material truth. And these results are just the beginning. Since going to late to market in late 2019, we saw over 7x revenue growth in 2020, continued momentum in 21. I have the privilege of working with an amazing management team and an entire team that's grown by 3 times over the last year. And what our advanced technology and platform is providing is a way for organizations to act quickly and move into this renaissance of supply chain transformation, with us acting as, I'm going to co-sign on our last gentleman, Alex, a brain that can understand and enable that as they adopt Industry 4.0. Thank you.
You got a bonus.
I got a bonus minute since I've been sick for 60.
You got a bonus time because we made you sit for an hour. So
I had to take my shot.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, that's right.
So I think Mr. Enrique should fire in.
Yeah, Enrique, let's let you fire the first salvo.
There you go.
Well, Paul, thank you very much. And once again, thanks for hanging in as the show ran a little bit late, but thank you so much. It was a really good presentation. I think that the need is very clear and the opportunities out there and what you guys do as well. So I'll probably move towards your vision for the company and where you want to take it. Like, what's this for you? What does it represent? Why are you doing this? And where do you want to take Verison in the next 5 years and then 10 years, maybe 20 years down the road?
Sure. Now, we've spent the last couple of years obviously developing some really transformative technology that we're very proud of and has put us in a great position to partner with organizations across the globe, right? And we see that as a unique opportunity. And so what we're focused on now is taking that to the next level, continuing to deliver more value across the materials management space. So we've done a lot of our work in indirect materials and maintenance repair operations. We're expanding that as we prepare for a Series B round later this year, proving some important signals that we feel can help really fill wide gaps in legacy systems and processes. So always going back to how can we deliver simplicity and fill those gaps so we are enhancing where customers are at with their current stack and future stacks. And we see that in the next 2 to 3 years by showing value to not only our customers, but their suppliers, and expanding from indirect and going into direct, which we're doing later this year. We got a lot of things in flight and a lot of signals that we assumed and see proof points to that we can infuse speed through capital, through simplicity, and in the next 2 to 3 years, really carve a new way of how organizations manage their materials and remove a lot of that pain and fear of how that fits in and unlocks full digital transformations.
No, Paul. So who's your biggest competitor right now, and what are some of the threats that you're seeing from the market? Because again, it's a very competitive market. A lot of companies are doing what you're doing.
You bet. So we like to look at ourselves as Switzerland, right? And the fact that we're neutral and can help enhance a lot of workflow generated software products with this understood data. But our direct competitors now are more traditional methods, right? They're data cleansing companies that are maybe adding ML and AI to making a faster horse, right? With data cleansing, right? We believe that, understood data and allowing an organization to be able to look out to the network and transform naming of physical goods and just being able to accept digital goods and be able to transfer demand signals across systems is the way of the future. And so data cleansing and then individual inventory optimization, procurement optimization, spend analytics type of platforms are what we compete against. But what we also challenge our customers to look at, what outcomes are you trying to drive with that? That can be a very lengthy and continual maintenance process that they're going to continue to have to manage. Let's eliminate that. Let's focus on realizing quick outcomes and enable these learnings to scale across your organization.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Balaji, you want to go next?
Sure. Paul, I like your haircut. I've
Thank you
myself.
Yeah.
And
looking clean.
yes. I think Enrique asked a lot of really good questions, and obviously you and I know each other a bit.
Yeah.
And kind of know what you're doing. I'm curious about what do you think the biggest challenges are for Verison to achieve some of the vision that you have vis-a-vis both indirect and direct materials, and how do you plan to tackle that as you continue to grow, both on a national level and more importantly on a multinational level?
Certainly. So there are a couple things I'll touch on that we're trying to solve for and simplify. Like many companies, we will win. First thing that we've worked a ton on over the last few quarters is getting data out of systems faster and easier and making that process less painful for our customers. That's one that is going to help us significantly overcome that challenge and realize shorter selling cycles and greater speed to value of what we do with that data. Because once we get the data that we need, we really have a fantastic track record of just wowing customers, right? And so that's one thing we're working on. I think what has happened, and I think Gregg and I have talked about this offline a handful of times, is there was this rush to supply chain technology and getting things in place during the pandemic because legacy systems aren't agile, the networks aren't there, all the things, all the buzzwords. But then what we've seen is they've put together these digital transformations. There's a ton of noise, the way they think they need to go about it versus, what they can do now that can fit into an evolving transformational plan. I think it was an opportunity in 2020. It's been a challenge as needs have shifted from running lean to supplier risk and operational risk. And so continuing to infuse speed into that has presented itself as a little bit of a challenge because the bets you're making today can challenge how that digital transformation goes from time to time. And for us as a company, and we had a town hall last week where we addressed the entire organization about when we're building features or when we're asked to do certain things, that we continue to point it back to that material truth, and that we are still, whether it's indirect, direct, eventually finished goods, that we can continue to fill the gaps that are there that can alleviate the uncertainty that exists in supply chain.
That's really what every one of these companies is battling today. Right? Every one of you is in battling a stage of disruption that I don't think we've seen before. Certainly not seen in this measure before, and certainly not for this COB. Based on this cause, right? So as you guys go forward, right? I know you're trying to improve sales, and as Balaji said, worldwide effectively.
Yeah.
I know a lot of your customers are big enterprises. Where do you see a play for maybe a lighter, I don't know if it's a lighter implementation, but a lighter sales process into smaller companies?
We do. One of the other challenges is as we go global, that I failed to touch on is localization, right? Of language and getting data understood out of systems without cleaning it, is something that we're working on moving ahead. And to your, what was the question you just asked? Sorry.
Smaller, if you.
Oh, it's SMBs.
Yeah.
So we target $1 billion plus revenue companies. 5+, 10+ facilities. That's really where it becomes very difficult to manage. We target SAP, Oracle, Infor, Maximo EAM, Infor EAM systems, which covers a good majority of the market. But as we're developing that, we're seeing an opportunity in what we consider kind of SMB manufacturing and supply chain based companies, 300 million to $1 billion in revenue, smaller footprint, that we can give them enterprise ready intelligence in a light form. We do see that opportunity as we have more resources to focus on that.
So I'm going to do a final take here and then let you guys come back around. I'm a small, big beats big person, right? As you well know. And I think the underpinning of a smaller but more rapid flow of deals really creates a lot of revenue stability in a company at your stage. And then the big wins, which we've seen and Alex spoke to as well, take anywhere from 4 to 18 months. Then those aren't so critical. So, the guidance I would offer there is to whatever extent you are seeing opportunity there, start to attack that and drive that through your pipeline. So any final comments from you, and then we'll let.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously you're going after some of the big guys, and those sales cycles are long. The resistance as those other companies start to attack your space, I think, is always in your crosshairs. How do you hope to kind of combat that? I know you want to be Switzerland, but at some point you're going to have to
compete.
Compete.
No, and we do on mind share. Again, what people think they need to do. We're evangelizing a new way of doing things, right? And there are inherent challenges there. So we have some big feature releases around things that will separate us significantly from our current competition that are coming out over the next few quarters, that I think creates more of a gap on distancing us from copycats on messaging, and then others that try to replicate a bit of how we attack systems and processes. So we're always cognizant of that and trying to stay ahead in terms of R&D, and Andrew and our CTO and our data science team is a big part of that, and product team. And something we're always thinking about is, as we, one of the advantages we have is we don't have legacy to be beholden to in terms of how we're architecting this. And we want to continue to be that intelligence that understands and connects across systems, I think, is the place where we want to be, and not get pulled down the rabbit holes of replicating workflows and things of that nature that presents itself every day when enterprises want us to do that little feature, do that, this little feature, little feature. So that's what we're going to remain steadfast to, and infuse the business with capital and good humans to co-sign on one of our core values, and something I learned from you, Balaji. And just race to the finish line here.
Thanks. Enrique, any final thoughts?
Yeah, no, just a couple of questions for you, Paul. One, in terms of how big are you guys now in terms of revenue or employees or whatever metric makes sense for you in your industry? Yeah. And then the other is what's your ask, right? What can this community help you with? And if there's anything that we could do to help you continue growing this amazing company that you currently have.
Excellent. Thanks, Enrique. So yeah, we are coming up on mid-year, approaching 5 million in ARR. We're looking to continue that growth in towards the end of the year. Quarter over quarter, we're seeing more momentum, bigger pipeline, more deals, and our maturity being able to shorten selling cycles. So we want to continue that progress from a revenue perspective. We just crossed the 40 employee threshold and are looking to end the year between 50 and 60 likely. And then our ask is, interesting space, interesting time. So if you're an investor that finds supply chain interesting and in that growth stage round and want to discuss, happy to make those connections now. And if you are a customer that feels this pain, would love to connect and talk about how you're looking at it and some simple things that you can do quickly to infuse your business with some transformation amidst your big supply chain transformation. And then we're always looking in a super competitive environment. Here in Atlanta is very competitive with supply chain technology, a lot of great growth stage startups, and just competitive in general. We're looking for great people. We got a lot of open engineering positions, sales positions, product manager positions, really across the board. And what I'm most proud of, and Gregg, you've seen it, Balaji, you've seen it, is our culture. And great culture, great work environment, have a lot of fun, solve a lot of big problems, and so always looking for great people if you're interested out there or know someone that may be a fit for us.
Thank you.
Send my resume over tomorrow.
All right. We got a pretty intensive interview process, but I can get you in front of a hiring manager.
Outstanding. All right. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it. Again, Paul Noble, CEO, co-founder at Verison.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Wow. I feel like we've taken up most of people's afternoons. First of all, to you two and to Robin, thank you so much for joining us. I know you didn't sign up for an hour and a half, Enrique, so I really appreciate you sticking around. And Balaji, you did sign up for whatever. I don't
have a choice. I'm here with Gregg.
All right. So any quick takeaways generally in what you've seen here, or anything specific on a particular company or founder you want to share?
Enrique, you want to go? Because
yeah, well, actually, I had a couple of takeaways for each one of the companies, and I can probably start that way through my notes. But for Yardz, well, first and foremost, they were all really good companies, very talented CEOs. I'm sure they'll be very successful, and they'll count with all my support and my company's support if there's anything we can do to help them out. So if for Alex, Jason, and Paul, if you guys need anything, just hook me, just link me on LinkedIn, and I'll be more than happy to help out. Now for Yardz, Jason, it sounds like it's a real problem that he's trying to resolve. I think that it's a little bit, it has to probably be better articulated in terms of like what the actual competitor it is. And I think Balaji, you mentioned, but if it's just going against the Excel spreadsheets and Post-its, I don't necessarily think that that's enough. I think there has to be something else, something probably more strategic that could help them get to the next level. And then the other one, and I brought it up, is just the go-to-market strategy, right? Use a pricing strategy that he has. If it's just an aggregating data, like Mint, and he mentioned this example, my initial thought was, well, then is it a more go-to-market strategy being more regional better than just being through an app and maybe more national or global? If that's the case, I mean, what would be the best way of going there? I think those would be my two things. Speaking about Yardz.
You have any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think Enrique touched on a couple of points. I think they're solving a problem of today. I don't know if they're solving a problem of the future. And I think the future proofing a startup and having that vision to do so, it becomes imperative, not only for the team, but also for investors and customers to lock them in now, to show what the wedge is, to show what the beachhead is, and to add value to now and moving forward. I think some of the challenges around getting the telematics information could be surmounted if there's a clear value exchange of why I give you my data. And I think that's the challenge that they need to figure out is like, if you give the data, I give you Y. Mm-hmm. And if he's able to do that and then become that aggregator of pretty important data, it's a good place to go. I would posit, if you look at adjacencies and in big cost equipment in the medical space and others, a lot of these things are going specifically on usage basis, and you can put things in to monitor how much time you actually use on the equipment and charge people that way. And I don't know if that's going to happen in this case, but again, that's a trend in a lot of other big heavy equipment areas in a lot of different industries where the cost of ownership becomes unmanageable. But I don't want to pay for the full rental if I'm not going to use it.
Yeah. I think in this market, because it's a huge physical asset that costs millions of dollars, unlike a medical device, you can't deploy something the size of a laptop 100 places. So I think I don't know the answer to that, but I think that's an excellent question to ask. As to some adjacent presumptions, I think there's one that I may have even already suggested that he turn on its head, and that is the waiting for advanced technology. I think he needs to, as you have both said, enunciate the value proposition of those advanced technologies that I think can make it a tomorrow solution, and get funding for those things now. Because what I think, he didn't explicitly state it here, but this is commonly the case. I think he's working with the money that he has and delaying the advancement of the technology based on the money that he has. I think he needs to identify the value of the technology that he could have or should have to really solve the problem in a truly differentiated way, and present the company based on that value proposition, raising the valuation of the company and getting more funding to enable him to do that sooner. I really think that's critical to what he's doing. I love the steps he's taken to really ramp up sales, by the way, and also for a company at his stage, I mean, I think they're early stage numbers, but to even think about how he has analyzed his pipeline, 50 to whatever it is, 50 to 5 to 1, right? 50 leads to 5 demos to 1. I think we'd love for that number to be higher, but that he even knows it at this stage of the company is less than $1 million revenue. That's really impressive.
Totally agree. Like, he has a really good company and a bright future for sure. Do you want to comment on Alex and CognitOps, Gregg? Is that kind of how you want to do this?
Yeah. You want to start? You want me?
Either way.
Go ahead, do you want to start, Balaji?
Sure. Again, they raised a ton of money. They have some impressive clients and revenue traction. I do think that warehouse optimization is being attacked by multiple angles, and there's a lot of different ways to optimize that. So I hope they continue to make the progress they have. I think, to Gregg's point, it's a crowded space. I think your wedge on entry is key. I think the labor shortage and labor management is an interesting wedge into that window today. Yeah. Given all the current challenges we see. If that levels off, I don't know. And I do think the selling and the onboarding process when it comes to this data, which is dirty as hell and not consistent, nor does it exist in many places, right, is cumbersome. And as you go bigger, that becomes an increasing challenge for people to scale. So but I, again, is it a problem? Absolutely a problem.
I agree. And one of the things that I really liked about his presentation is at the beginning of it, he mentioned two things: the worker engagement and the idle time. And then he just went out and said that 100% of his revenues came from single warehousing companies. And I think the brain idea that he had and that he expressed, especially when he came to interconnecting this, if he kind of has I think that there might be a play there that connects that idea with the labor management software and try to combine both and see if there could be a way of actually through his system and software to combine workers so that the workers could work in multiple warehouses around the same region, all being engaged and trying to minimize the idle time. I think he's onto something there if he focuses on that.
I think that is the holy grail, Enrique. I think it's more difficult than they might imagine because I don't see consistency in warehouses in terms of systems
Mhm.
or configuration or anything.
Right.
Typically. And when you talk about acquisitions and the use of 3PLs and burstable space and on-demand space, it increasingly makes it complex to get that network effect moving if you don't have that consistent footprint of the warehouse and the software to run it. So I think, again, to your point, single warehouse, I think is very manageable. I think as that scales to multiple warehouses, unless they're lookalikes, it's going to be hard to get that network effect and that brain in motion.
Well, I was thinking of sharing resources, right? I mean, what could be even the next step? Because idle time, worker engagement, I mean, if you had 2, 3, 4 different warehouses in the same region, even if they're different companies, and someone like Alex with his software could come in and share resources between one client and the other, I think that would be pretty impressive and definitely worth doing or exploring. But good presentation overall.
This is probably my own perspective problem, but I really struggle with how much additional value can be created in WMS. It has nothing to do with Alex or CognitOps. I actually think they have a great team, as I think we all discovered kind of later in the presentation. They do kind of undersell some of their differentiating features. I think that one thing I would not identify ever as a differentiating feature is the strength of my team, unless my team is as strong and as well funded as Google. Because when I use that argument, the question you have to pose to yourself is, if somebody with $86 million or $86 billion in cash could build a team this strong, of course they could. They can hire anybody and build this technology relatively quickly. So I think you have to be really careful about, and I don't mean team necessarily. I just mean that the area or the industry expertise part of the team, because that's really easy to accumulate, including your own people. If Amazon or Google really wanted them, they could get them, right? But some of those differentiators in regard to in regard to digital twins and the ML and some of that they're doing, I think that makes them a very great niche play. They just need to decide on that niche. I was a little bit concerned about being confused with an LMS and being confused with some other aspects of the warehouse management solution. They need to pick a niche and really drive towards that. And I think this might be a good candidate for an early takeout. If this is something that Manhattan and Blue Yonder and High Jump are not doing, and I know that those companies are seeking solutions to fill the voids in their own applications, I think they could see this focus on the operator, right? Which that was the part that resonated for me. Right. Focus on the operations manager, focus on that area. They could see that as their own gap and then go, let's go get it rather than build it. And I think you could see this company get some good value at a fairly early takeout. All right, last but not least, our friends at Verison.
Well,
you want to start?
Yeah, no, I'm obviously biased, and
well, you guys already know him well.
Balaji is invested in
full disclosure. I've been an investor and a advocate for Verison since day one, even before they had a product and paying clients. So I've been with the company for a long time and have seen their evolution of not only the team but the product, the platform, and the market
sales.
Yeah, right. And the market kind of materialized. I think highly of the company, not because necessarily of Paul, who I think is great and the team is great, but because when I was at SAP, I validated the problem that they're trying to solve with numerous clients who were running on SAP, were looking for a solution like this and did not have it. And we're waiting for something to show up, and we're told it'll take anywhere from 2 to 3 years before they get anything.
Right. By SAP, which really means 6 to 8 years.
And so it's
in ERP, by the way, not just that, not to ding SAP.
The ability to create an agile organization around this inventory optimization in the times that we're seeing today, and probably the near future as supply chains continue to be flattened worldwide and connected worldwide and reconfigure themselves over and over again because of scarcity and what have you. I think they're in a unique position to add a lot of value and have a good exit.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
No, I won't speak to the company because you guys have know them well, and I totally agree that there's a big opportunity in that area. But just to the pitch itself, to Paul, I think that it was a little bit too general for my taste. I think like he used a lot of like very general words like adding value, quick outcomes, simplicity, be more efficient, features that are differentiating us. And I at some point, like as I was following up his presentation, I wish he would have been a little bit more specific about, well, what features are you talking about, or so that was kind of one of my
problems. Is that didn't
correct.
land? Is that
or even the competitor's question? Well, what companies in particular can you name them? Right. So a little bit more specific answers, but it was a great pitch. Paul's a great person. He's a really good leader too. And at the end, I have to mention that he brought up the culture, which I'm a big fan of. And I would have liked to hear a little bit more about the great culture that his company has, because he's right. It's very important to attract good talent. And at the end of the day, he's going to be only as strong as his team is and his talent. So
yeah, I'll take a little bit of credit for that, Enrique, because Paul and I talked a lot about the culture since the beginning. And, at Kubera, we have a core tenet of everything that we do, which is only work with good humans,
right?
Invest in good humans and really support good humans in any way. And we believe that enough good humans coming together, great things happen. It's one of the reasons why we're here in Wichita at Groover, because we think there are a lot of good humans here trying to do some important things for the ecosystem.
Yeah, they are.
And I think that goes a long way. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to articulate that golden rule, but you can identify a good human. If your spider sense tingles, pay attention to it. All those things kind of matter.
I completely agree.
For those that know Peter Parker a little better than I do.
Yeah, in case Tracy Hoover, in case one of the founders of Groover happens to be watching, we need to make sure we say it right. Spidey sense. Yeah. Sorry, Enrique.
No. That was I'm totally agree with you. And I was thinking that maybe one of the things that I would like this kind of pitches to hear a little bit more about the entrepreneurs and CEOs out there is to talk about their culture. I think that it should be a key aspect of their pitch to any investor, because at the end of the day, or at least I'll speak for myself, I invest in people, right? So yeah, the idea is great, the systems are great, the technology is great and all that, but you're at the end of the day betting on people. So I wish like people in general and entrepreneurs that are making all these pitches around the world will talk a little bit more about the culture and how their culture is different and what are they doing to just make a positive impact in the world.
So I think that's a really good demonstration. And in fact, we were pitched a few companies, and we had the benefit of someone who, like you, is a culture hawk, and she asked some really poignant questions of some companies, and they were ready to answer it. They just didn't present it as part of their presentation. I think where we're left often as investors, you too, Enrique, and well, everyone really is. I am a firm believer that the culture of the company comes from the top. Whether it's intentional or unintentional, it comes from the leader. So the way that I judge the culture of the company is by judging the culture that I believe that particular founder or CEO embodies in the presentation. And I basically apply that to the entire company. And it takes some extrapolation right in your mind to do that. But
yeah, I mean, to that point, Robin withstanding, she was a great CEO. Love to see more women that are out there building supply chain companies.
Good point.
Show up and ping Gregg if you want to get on the next
please
sunrise, right? And
take your shot.
Take your shot, take your shot. And we'd love to see much more diversity. I'm glad we have some diversity in the mix, and I'd love to see that continue.
Yeah, no doubt.
Great point.
Well, first of all, let's thank Robin, all of us, first of all, for putting up with us for a full hour, and you too. I really appreciate it. Appreciate you sticking around. This has been a great conversation. I hope this has been useful insights for our audience into this. I would love to get into the stream and have more conversation, answer more questions. We're going to do it in shorter time next time, I promise, and even leave a little bit of time for that. Do you guys realize that the last time we did this show, we did it in 30 minutes? How in the heck did we ever accomplish that? So
you made us shut up early.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Scott was running it. That's why. So what we'll probably do is cut it down to maybe one or two companies and just run one or two companies through this, because I I'd love to hear from you in the audience, if any of you are still out there. Do you want more of this kind of conversation with and about the founders and the companies, or less? Do you want it to be more compact like the one we did in April? And we'll adapt it to whatever format you want to see it. All right, John, thank you. I appreciate that. John Baglino says, well worth it. So thanks. Obviously, a few people still have some time to spend with us, Gregg. I like your tagline. Take your shot. Thanks, Jose. All right. Well, let's wrap up. I think by this time we're all hungry. Enrique, I don't know if you had.
Yeah. Thanks for your reference with that pork chops. I was starving when you mentioned that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, anyway, also thanks to Scott and Amanda and Clay and Allie, who have all kind of stuck around with us here and been making sure that we don't make I don't make complete fools out of all of us here. So I really appreciate it. The production team has never been more valuable than when I am trying to run one of these things. So I really, really appreciate it. And of course, Supply Chain Now, our mothership and platform. Thank you for providing us with this opportunity. I hope this is valuable to the community. And you can always check out any shows, Tequila Sunrise or any of the other shows at supplychainnow.com. Don't forget to subscribe. June is subscribe month. So subscribe. Click a button around here somewhere by the time this thing gets posted, and join up and listen up. All right. So, and of course, you can find Tequila Sunrise. We're taking the summer off. We'll still be doing these live streams, these Take Your Shot live streams, but we're taking the summer off to kind of retool a little bit and then come back better than ever in August. So, as I love to tell everyone, I really appreciate you sharing your time with us. Balaji, Robin, and Enrique, I appreciate all of your time. Thank you. As always, it's always great to see you in person or virtually. And remember, always acknowledge reality, but refuse to be bound by it. Thanks.